Hey Siri, how long ago was February 2009?
It was 14 years ago.
So things were very different in every aspect. So the biggest difference was obviously social media and communication. Back then, when you wanted to talk to someone back in Uganda, where I'm from, you had to go down to the convenience store and buy what's called a calling card. And off the calling card, you would scratch numbers, type them in, your dial phone or dial them in, you would get 18 minutes for every $5. That's how challenging life was. So you had to do that every time you wanted to talk to someone. Unlike it is today, everybody is really available on WhatsApp and you can talk. Weather. So when I moved here from Uganda, it was February 2009 and the weather was so horrible. I think the snow was right up to my knees and I was just so curious how people would ever want to live here because the weather was actually really not good. It was freezing. It was horrible. So that was also a challenge. But also another challenge was the life here was just not desirable. You know, you would wake up and it's cold and you go to school and then you come right back home. So there was little community where I grew up, unlike it is today where there's a bunch of Ugandans, at least in Waltham where I grew up. Back then there was not, and the only time we would meet up, it's a little park called Prospect Park in Waltham. In our language we call it Miti. Miti, it means trees, because you know there was a bunch of trees. That's where every once in a while on Saturdays we would meet up, or if you go to church on Sunday you'd find some people there. The community was not as big as it is right now, so life was just challenging. And you know, when I came here, it was only a couple months until I was in high school. And that is a whole story on its own. The kids were quite brutal, actually, in a sense that they were not as understanding of different cultures. So when we moved here, there was we had to make a huge cultural adjustment. So one funny story is, in Uganda, it is very normal for two guys to walk around the street holding hands. So my brother and I were holding hands down the hall, and people would just look at us and they would not say anything, not knowing that's a whole different thing over here. So my brother and I were holding hands, and then one guy, it's a Spanish guy, one of our friends, came and whispered to us, and he said, when you guys hold hands, people think you're gay. And we've never held hands ever since. So that's just one example of how like the system here was so different. And being that we were quite young, it didn't take us a long time to adjust. Obviously, we were curious, we were young, everything was super exciting, but we just had to do a lot of adjustments. So one of the things that I'm glad I was able to work on is how I communicate, because communication in this country is so important. Back where I'm from in Uganda, things are quite loose, We don't take everything too serious. Here in America, communication is serious and people are very cautious with their time. So that's something that I've had to adjust. But the other thing that I've come to realize as I've grown up, that the American dream is still alive, but it's not as clear as it used to be, because the challenges that this country is facing are enormous, and people that are moving to this country have to be very careful of the challenges that they can face, especially if you're coming to this country as an older person. There are things that you must understand from the get-go. When I grew up, as I was growing up, one of the things that I had challenges understanding was the law. I wasn't a criminal, so I wasn't committing any crimes, but little things as forgetting to pay my insurance on time, or forgetting to pay a parking ticket, or driving a little bit faster than I should. Things like that can catch up to you really quickly and ruin your entire time here in the US if you're going to stay. So those are just some of the things that people coming to the US should be aware of. And also, the system here is sort of rigged to keep you working. One of the challenges or things that I've seen here is the lack of community, because people spend hours and hours and hours working every day, day in, day out. And it's unfortunate that many times, I don't remember 1 year it's not happened where someone in our community has just flat out died, dropped to their death because they have been overworked. You know, the autopsy comes out and they could find nothing, but these people have exhausted their entire bodies just by working. So if you're coming from Uganda or from any other country and you have that desire to work and change where you're coming from, be careful that this system was designed to keep you that way, to keep you working and to keep you as a slave basically to the paycheck. So that's something that I've had to learn, and just had to cut back. By spending all those hours at the job, you're sacrificing your personal growth, you're sacrificing your family, you're sacrificing your mental health, and you cannot really do that for long until it catches up to you and you will have created irreversible damage. So that's the one downside that I've really found about this country that most people don't actually like to talk about. But overall, my experience here in the US has been quite good. I have been blessed to get so many opportunities to go to school, to be able to learn the things that I want to learn, and to be able to flourish in my industry where I make videos and films. So this country has definitely been a blessing. This has been the luckiest part of my life, and I would not take it back for anything. I still think that America, there's tons of opportunities if you come here and you're willing to do what it needs to be done. I think you do pretty well, but now we just have to be cautious of those disadvantages or those challenges that might catch you stuck in the system. Thanks so much for watching.